we got Thursday, tonight. The 12s will be in full effect when the Rams host their division rival Seahawks. Jeff Fisher won't be on the sidelines for the Rams, but he was on the sideline when the Rams upset Seattle in Week 2. LA has lost 8 of their last 9, and Seattle is coming off an embarrassing loss at Lambeau. But this might surprise you. The Rams have dominated this matchup, winning 3 straight against Seattle in 4 of their last 5. Max Kellerman, I need you here. Should the Seahawks be on upset alert? Talk to us.
Yep. I mean, look, this is for a divisional game, all these kind of things, rivalry. Look, the Seahawks are my pick to get to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. Mm-hmm. Still, the Rams are a bad team that just got their coach fired. But that coach, who had an amazing run of futility, especially in recent years, all his highlights, it seems, came against the Seahawks, like all of them. They gave Russell Wilson problems on defense because they could get to the quarterback. They won on special teams, kind of ugly games, but they won. And when they didn't win, they gave him problems. So and I don't think that's because they were playing for Jeff Fisher or Jeff Fisher had some special game plan for the Seahawks. I think that's just the matchup and the rivalry and a game these guys get up for. So there's that. And then you look at the fact that they just got their coach fired. They didn't, once it became public that Fisher had been extended, that was it. Then the team was like, you know what, we ain't playing anymore. I know the extension didn't happen right when they quit, but once it became public and an issue, this team was like, all right, that's enough. Get him out of here. So now in John Fassel, they have a guy who maybe they'll play for. I mean, certainly more than Jeff Fisher, you would think. So you couple that bounce you sometimes get when a team gets rid of the coach they don't want, get someone else in there. There's usually a natural little bit of a bounce there, and then couple that with the fact that they've beaten the Seahawks as much as they have in recent years. Yes, they are live underdogs in this game.
I disagree. And I disagree because they're the Rams. They're a joke. We all know this. They won't be in the future once they get their bearings under them. They get their organization headed in the right direction. But Jeff Fisher has contaminated this team enough to ruin this season. They were losers of 8 of the last 9 games. They got him fired, but damn it, he got himself fired. If these players got Jeff Fisher fired because of the season that they're having, well, what about the other 15 seasons and 21 years that the man missed the playoffs? How come they didn't get him fired? I'm not blaming these players. I'm blaming Jeff Fisher. That's why he's unemployed. That's why he's without a job. That's why he'll probably never be a head coach again in the NFL. And that's why he shouldn't be, because he was unproductive, regardless of the tears that they wanted to sit up there and put on display in the aftermath of his departure. You could sit there and say, well, they didn't get it done for him, but he didn't get it done for him. He didn't get it done because of his play calling. He didn't get it done because of his schemes. He didn't get it done because of his lack of development. And that is that. So you could sit up there and think that for 1 week, some epiphany is going to take place, and suddenly tonight, on a Thursday night, with minimal time to prepare, in Seattle, no less, not in Los Angeles, on the road against a team that just got trounced this past weekend. This is a team in the Russell Wilson era that never lost by more than 10 points in a game ever since Russell Wilson arrived. And this past Sunday, they got annihilated. They got beat down and blown out. And all of a sudden, they're going to allow these Rams to be competitive? Good luck with that. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying there's no way in hell I believe that's going to be the case. I expect the Rams to lose. I expect them to get beat up. I expect them to get embarrassed. And I expect everybody to be talking about how Jeff Fisher contaminated this team so much we may not see a recovery until next year. Period.
Well, 2 things about the way Seattle just lost, and they got blown out, right? You never get blown out in your entire career, Russell Wilson, and then you get blown out. Two ways to look at that. 1, they're just not a very good team right now. That makes a lot of sense. And 2, that they will be extremely motivated for their next game, and that they are a much better team than they showed. And I think it's the latter. I think Seattle's much better than they showed last week. And that they will be extremely motivated for this game, which is why I don't pick the Rams to win the game outright, which they've done more versus Seattle than Seattle has done versus them recently. That's just a statement of fact.
I just have a question. Yeah. So you acknowledge that, I just want to make sure I'm clear, Molly. Hold on for a second.
Yeah.
So, Max, you acknowledge that the Rams are an inferior team.
Yep.
You acknowledge that the Seahawks are highly motivated.
Yes.
And, of course, they have this game at home.
Yep.
And as a result, you acknowledge that they're going to win. But in the same breath that you're saying all of that, you want us all to recognize this is really going to be tough.
This may be an ugly kind of 12-9 win by a field goal type game for Seattle, and the Rams could easily win it. Everything you said about Jeff Fisher, everything you said about Jeff Fisher is true. Everything you said about Jeff Fisher is true. But that's all true. But somehow those guys were ready to play this team, and I anticipate a better version of the Rams team
quarterback in the Rams tonight?
Than with the one we saw versus than the one we saw versus even Seattle in recent times.
I'm just asking the question: who's quarterback in the Rams tonight?
Me.
Who's the quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams tonight? Who's going to be throwing the football, Max? Who?
No one very good, Stephen A.
Jared Goff. I just want to make sure. I'm saying the way you sound, Matt Ryan or somebody's going to be throwing the football. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't know. My bad.
One of Fisher's problems was that, and this goes for the GM, not just the coach, was that it appears that they drafted the wrong guy. They traded up in the draft to draft him. Then they didn't do a very good job developing him. It seemed to me that was to create more runway for the coach, because you could always point, hey, we haven't even played the starting quarterback yet of the future. That maybe he thought would buy him another year or two. It didn't work, if in fact that was his plan. They have an inexperienced rookie quarterback now who hasn't been very good so far. All that's true. They play Seattle tough all the time.
I was not seeking an explanation. I just wanted to know who was quarterbacking, because I wasn't sure. I just wasn't sure. Now I know. It's not Matt Ryan or Drew Brees or somebody. It's Jared Goff. I just want to make sure.
It's not about who's quarterbacking the team. It's about who's going after the other team's quarterback, in this case, Aaron Donald.
All right. Vegas doesn't think it's going to be very tough, gentlemen. Seattle is favored by 16 without Earl Thomas, who they certainly missed at Lambeau last week. Coming up.
Welcome back to First Take, presented by Bass Pro Shops.
Jerry Jones is the owner for the Dallas Cowboys. He cuts the check. And this man has come out publicly and all but said, I hope something happens to Dak Prescott so Tony Romo could get up in there. This ain't a bus driver we're talking about here. This dude is something special. How in God's name does that benefit Dak Prescott? What's inescapable and what is undeniable is the fact that Jerry Jones has made it very, very clear he don't want Dak to be that guy.
All right, Will Kane back with us. So, Will, that was earlier in the show. You were not with us
at the
time.
I promise you, I didn't miss it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to Stephen A. and Max right there?
Well, I've had time to recover, but I was a little worked up about it. I mean, we also left out the key word, I think, which was you said Jerry Jones, Stephen A. was trying to sabotage Dak Prescott. That's interesting. And Max says Jerry Jones has called Dak Prescott a bus driver. So let's make a couple quick points. It's amazing to me your low opinion, both of you, your low opinion of Dak Prescott. See, I have made the argument from time to time that the Cowboys should consider when they would move towards Tony Romo, that if Dak puts together a couple more games that are below average or not up to what the standards are of a Super Bowl team, they should consider Tony Romo. And the feedback I constantly get is, you don't care about this team, you're trying to undercut Dak? It's the same thing you're doing. You guys think Dak can't handle this? You think Dak's confidence is that weak? You think Dak's belief in himself is subject to the latest comments from you or Jerry Jones or me? That is a low opinion of Dak Prescott. Earlier in the show, you both said, to your credit, that Dak could handle the outside pressure. If you can walk that far, why do you take such a left turn at the last moment? Stephen A., I know the answer with you. Jerry Jones wants to sabotage Dak Prescott. Your answer for that left turn out of nowhere is simply your bias. You just can't see the Cowboys the right way. You've admitted on the show that your emotion has clouded your judgment. But Max, you're a man who prides himself on being rational. If you could see the world in ones and zeros, that would be your preference. You want to see it all add up mathematically. But you say that Jerry Jones called Dak a bus driver? Yeah. You know he did not do that. You know how to read that quote, Max. He said, He said Tony Romo is not a bus driver in comparing him to other backup quarterbacks, not in comparing him to Dak. No, he wasn't saying Dak's a bus driver and Tony's not. He's saying most backups are bus drivers and Tony is not.
Boy, you read that. I don't know what your reading comprehension scores were, Will, but boy, you got that one wrong.
Sorry.
You are. First, I thought
Max,
you were just creating a straw man in me to have something to whack at, because I agree that Dak Prescott's mentally very strong, obviously, and this kind of criticism is not going to affect him the way it would affect somebody else. But to argue that Jerry Jones is referring to other backup quarterbacks as bus drivers, when bus driver could be heard as game manager, and he's clearly saying Tony Romo is better than that? Who do you think he's talking about?
This isn't a debate. I'm sorry, bud. You were wrong on this. The reading comprehension is clear. He's referring to other backups. He's saying our $100 million guy over here, $100 million guy, we're not talking about this being Kyle Orton over there. We're not talking about this being a bus driver. He's not saying the guy who's in the game, who's won him 11 games, is a bus driver. He's simply not doing that.
He's saying Tony Romo is more than a guy who doesn't make mistakes and is a game manager. Bus driver might as well be read as game manager, which is what Dak Prescott's been accused of being, even though he's more. First of all, game manager is not a dirty word. And secondly, Dak Prescott's clearly shown to be much more than that.
When he says that, he is
elevating Romo at the expense of Dak.
Stephen A.
Well, I was actually enjoying the back and forth banter between the two guys. And I mean, in the case of Will, I find it not just ironic, but absolutely hysterical that he would accuse me of being biased when it comes to the Cowboys, as if he's not. I love how he just eradicates and omits himself from that equation. Like, oh, I'm not objective, but he is. He's just a paragon of virtue in that regard. Stop your nonsense. You know better. Well, you have no objectivity when it comes to your Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, by the way, especially when it comes to Tony Romo, because the one thing that easily a little child could predict when it comes to Will Cain is that it is important for him to be right. And how in God's name could you possibly be right if you ignored what Jerry Jones is trying to do with Tony Romo? You probably are the only person on the planet that wants Tony Romo in the lineup more than Jerry Jones. So who are you to sit up there and pick apart my statement, which are very obvious, by the way. Jerry Jones has a, hold on, zip it, listen. Jerry Jones is the owner for the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott has won 11 straight. The only 2 losses has been to the New York Giants. They are 11-2, clearly in position to win the NFC East, clearly in a position to be the #1 seed in the entire NFC. And yet Jerry Jones is talking about what a great moment it would be if Tony Romo found his way back into that lineup. What do you call that, Will? What do you call it?
Honesty. That's what I call it.
Oh, honesty in terms of his feelings?
Yeah.
In terms of his feelings? And his wishes?
My turn.
And his wishes?
My turn. Let me tell you this. You're right. I don't lie to anybody. I'm not here playing a role. I'm not acting. I have bias on the Cowboys. It is true. As you. I have a positive bias towards the Cowboys. You have a negative
one.
You have a negative one. You know the difference between you and me?
Don't sit there and leave it on me. That's all I said. Don't forget yourself.
Okay, but the difference between us, while we both have our bias, is that I've been right and you've been wrong.
How?
I have sat here with you week after week, except for the weeks when you couldn't face the competition with me, telling you the Cowboys were going to win, starting with the Washington Redskins in week 2, all the way through now. You have been wrong. No. Again,
Will,
and again, and again.
Time out, Will.
You were saying Romo was going to get his job back.
It's on tape.
I'm not done with that, Max. It's not over.
Hold it, Will. You sounded like that dude from Saturday Night Live that played Tim Kaine. Relax, chill out. Here's the deal, okay? I am on the record saying that the Dallas Cowboys, before the season began, would win the NFC East. That's number 1. Number 2, I said ain't no way in hell they're winning the Super Bowl. Come to me in February and let's see if I'm wrong. Number 3, what I said is this. Why are you rooting for Tony Romo? Me personally, if Tony Romo is back in the lineup, it will ensure that Jerry Jones has messed it up and the Dallas Cowboys are going down. So I won't mind. You want Tony Romo regardless of what Dak Prescott does, but you call yourself a a Cowboy fan when in fact you're really rooting for Tony Romo? How do you explain that?
And Will,
Yes, Max.
to sit there and say that you've been right and Stephen A's been wrong about the Cowboys all year. Yeah, this is the year that the Cowboys have so far gone 11-2.
Yeah.
The Cowboys fan is
Big
going to be
Will,
right a
how you
lot that
living?
year. I
Yeah.
mean, you know,
It's been a good
that's
year,
just
Max.
the way it goes.
Yeah, it's been a good year.
Yes, it has if you're a Cowboys fan so
Here,
far.
final points on this. The Jerry Jones and how do I explain myself to you, Stephen A. Jerry Jones is being honest. He's not painting it or spinning it or being a politician. He's acknowledging that he has an emotional connection to Tony Romo. And the story
let's
would
give him
play
a
out
cookie.
well. The story would play out well that the franchise quarterback would win the Super Bowl. But he doesn't want to sabotage Dak. Neither do I. I think the Cowboys can win a Super Bowl with either. I think Tony increases the odds. I'm not alone, by the way. Dominique Foxworth, Bomani Jones, other people have acknowledged this as well. I'm not alone here.
Would Dak Prescott be anything
country is
less than
300
million. Find a
sabotage
few who
if Tony
agree.
Romo ends up in the lineup, even if he doesn't get injured, but Tony Romo still found his
Gentlemen,
way up in the
this
lineup?
is
Would that
fun.
not be sabotage?
Sabotage. Like he wants to sabotage.
We gotta go.
Please.
Listen, the
Man, go home.
Giants. The
Go
Giants
home,
know
Will.
about
We're done.
sabotage. They sabotage your Cowboys' choice. Well, so good to see you.